Hi folks, Buffin here. Welcome to Newslation, the news show where I translate boring news things into things that Americans can care about. So this is about Trump and Putin, but I'll explain it talking about Chris Rock and Will Smith slapping him. So Americans don't really care about Trump trying to take over or destroy America. It's been going on for so long and continues to go on. Just don't really care about it, don't really want to talk about it, according to our media. And don't really care about Putin trying to take over and destroy the world, and or destroy the world. Kind of stupid because there's not a world to take over if you destroy it. But whatever. Don't really care about talking about that. We do care about talking about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. Now, I'm not going to suggest that Will Smith is some type of agent of Putin trying to distract from, say, the news story that a federal judge that day said Trump most likely broke federal laws, committed federal crimes, because that's the closest we're getting so far to him being arrested finally. But anyway, I will blame the media and social media and us for buying into it to talk about this so much and talk about that so little on the same day. But there is a parallel that I noticed, and it's based on the idea that Will Smith didn't have to slap Chris Rock. Now, it wouldn't have made as much news if he hadn't, but it would have made almost as much news if he'd done what I'm going to suggest. Why did Will Smith slap Chris Rock? Supposedly because he made the joke about his wife's health condition. Now, no one's giving Chris Rock credit for saluting the veterans because it was just as much a joke about G.I. Jane, but he wasn't necessarily criticizing him for saying something publicly about her health condition, because apparently the idea is you should know that this is a health condition and therefore you shouldn't make a joke about it. Now, given that Jada Pinkett Smith herself has been public about it, so maybe he should know, she's also trying to raise awareness about the condition, which I actually don't know what it is, or I don't know how to pronounce it. But that's why, if he wanted that to be the message to help his wife, he could have stopped and said, hey, I was going to hit you, but I'm not going to hit you. I'm going to take this time to tell people this is why my wife has this condition, and this is where you can go to help people with this condition and learn more about it. And use the moment to raise awareness, but he would have to stop to do it. There's a principle in Islam about stopping. Some people believe in stopping. So if he'd stopped and done that, he could have accomplished much more with no negative consequences. And that's how it compares to Trump and Putin. Because if you can appreciate what's wrong with Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and there's something aggressive, obviously violent, and machismo about it, then you can understand what's wrong with Trump and Putin. Trump, for years, but specifically on January 6th, during the insurrection, hours and hours into it, with everyone begging and pleading him to tell his people to stop, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't tell them to stop as president. He wouldn't tell them to stop as the organizer and leader of their coup. So he didn't stop, and he had hours and hours and hours to stop. Now, it would have been much more heroic for Will Smith to stop in the middle of, a 30-second or 10-second walk on the stage. But Trump had hours and hours and hours to consider stopping and possibly stop. Now, he would have had to do a lot more than just stop the insurrection to redeem himself. He would have had to turn over everybody, including Putin, who helped orchestrate it. But he didn't do that. He didn't take the chance to stop and redeem himself or become good in that moment. He went through with it, and that's what's wrong with it. Now, Putin did the same thing. He apparently had some beef with Ukraine. Let's say it was that Ukraine shouldn't join NATO. Well, NATO is an alliance to protect the countries from attack, so attacking a country seems a really stupid way to try to convince them not to join such an alliance, especially when you consider two other countries, I think Norway, Finland, maybe more, are considering joining NATO when they weren't before, specifically because of these actions. So completely counterproductive. But that's supposedly his complaint, or some other claims about people in Ukraine that might apply to some people in Ukraine, but apply more appropriately to Putin and Trump themselves. And it's one of their tactics to accuse other people of what they do. But he had his forces amassed, and that would have been a good time to stop and say, if he had a legitimate complaint against Ukraine, just like Will Smith could have stopped on that stage and say, hey, this is a time for people to learn about this disease. This isn't even about my wife or G.I. Jane or either of us. This is about educating the public about this disease. Then he could have been a hero in the situation instead of a villain. Now, if Putin has a legitimate complaint about Ukraine, he could have said, hey, well, I got my forces amassed and I got everybody's attention. Let me tell you and show you what's going wrong, and turned the world's ire against Ukraine instead of against him. But no, he didn't do that. And because it's not about whatever he might say it's about his ego and about, oh, Russia used to be this size and now it's this size, or USSR used to be this size and now we're down to Russia, or whatever. It's about machismo and lies and things like that, things that aren't really true. And backing that up, he makes it even worse and has terrible consequences for himself, but even more importantly, terrible consequences for the victims of his war. Trump's trying to destroy America. We don't care so much, but if we could stop and hold account for what's going on, then we would appreciate our country and saving it from this attack that is orchestrated by Putin. And you can tell, I mean, Putin admitted that himself recently, saying, if you continue to give arms to Ukraine, I will, corrupt your, try to influence your election. Well, influence your election again, like we did in 2016 using Facebook, primarily, to give you Trump again, or, the same way we did when we gave you Trump. So they're admitting it all the time. And it's all a sham. It's all that same machismo, violence, aggression. I can, punch things to be the way I want them to be. And you can't. And talking about it's the only way to fix things, and actually doing creative things that involve working together with people. And the more we do that, the more we'll save the world. So thanks for watching and sharing. And stay tuned for the next edition of Newslation about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial and Trump and Putin. Thanks for watching. See you soon.